I want a divorce." Stunned by these words from my wife, Emily, I was at a loss for words. Emily had said this without giving me any reason at all. "My name is John, and I'm 28 years old. I live with just my wife. I work at an advertising agency. My job is demanding, and I've struggled to find time for Emily. Could that have been the cause?" Emily suddenly brought up divorce. No matter what I asked, Emily adamantly demanded a divorce, and eventually, I had no choice but to give in. To some extent, I felt forced, but I signed the divorce papers and we ended up divorcing. Even after that, I couldn't quite forget about Emily. And no wonder, she was the most beautiful girl on campus when I was in college. Incredibly cute and kind to everyone. Her sleek, neat bob, and the dimples that appeared when she smiled. Emily, always surrounded by guys, seemed unapproachable to me. However, by chance, we ended up in the same seminar and started talking more. We both loved animals, and coincidentally, our thesis topics were related to marine and terrestrial creatures. We often visited zoos and aquariums together on our days off for research. We successfully completed our theses, collaborating along the way. Upon graduating from college, I mustered all my courage and confessed to Emily. I just wanted to convey my feelings, but to my surprise, Emily said, "I liked you too." It felt like a dream. I had managed to make Emily, the girl everyone admired, my girlfriend. I decided to become a man worthy of her. I diligently worked on my appearance and started working out. At my job, I spared no effort, becoming the most competent among my peers. I could do anything for Emily. Our relationship continued smoothly. Emily was thriving as an interior coordinator. We squeezed in dates amidst our busy schedules. After about 2 years, I started thinking about marriage. We were on a date at Emily's favorite aquarium. As Emily was looking at the fish through the glass, I said, "Can I talk to you for a moment? I have something important to say." When I called Emily, she turned towards me. It was just Emily and me there. All around us, various colorful fish swam gracefully. I pulled out a small box from my pocket and said, "Will you marry me, Emily? I promise to make you happy, no matter what." I opened the small box in front of Emily. At the sight of the sparkling diamond engagement ring, Emily let out a gasp of surprise. Tearfully, Emily gave her answer. "Of course, I'm looking forward to it." And just like that, everything fell into place, and Emily and I got married. We were on top of the world in both our careers and love life, fearing nothing. But the happy days didn't last long. After marriage, I became incredibly busy and couldn't spend much time with Emily. I thought we were still getting along fine. I never missed giving her flowers on anniversaries, and I hurried home whenever I could, just to be with Emily. Being with her was my reason for living. Despite all this, I was suddenly hit with a demand for a divorce. Right after divorcing Emily, embarrassingly enough, I drowned my sorrows in scams and gambling. No matter how much I drank, it was painful to see traces of Emily everywhere in this room. So, I threw myself even more into my work to forget about Emily. Fortunately, I was handling a big project at the time. I was practically living at the office. It was only several months after the divorce that I finally completed it. While I was focused on work to forget Emily, it seemed to others that I was passionate about my job. The project was a huge success. I got promoted. After achieving success at work, I got a long vacation from the company. But at home, I couldn't help but think of Emily. Unable to bear staying in my room, I casually went out. While wandering in front of a shopping center, I saw Emily walking happily from the other side. Next to her was a solid-looking man. I was so shocked that I just stood there, dumbfounded. Maybe she felt my gaze. Our eyes met, Emily's and mine. She also looked at me awkwardly. I let out a dry laugh involuntarily. I had somewhat expected something like this. There's usually only one reason a man gets divorced unilaterally by his wife. I had a faint suspicion that Emily might have found someone new. Even during our divorce, I actually asked Emily about it. She kept insisting it was not that, but it turns out it was. Seeing Emily with an unknown man, I couldn't stand being there. As I tried to flee from Emily, the man she was with suddenly yelled at me. "Hey, don't run away," he called out to me loudly enough for the people around to hear, and even grabbed my arm to stop me. I had reached my limit. I finally snapped, grabbing the man by the collar and shouting back, "You stole Emily from me. What are you talking about?" Two men scuffling in front of the shopping center. The passers-by started murmuring. Then, "It's not like that, John. Please, listen to me." Finally, Emily, the person in question, began to speak. But I couldn't stop the emotions I had been bottling up from overflowing. The man with her desperately tried to restrain me as I was about to lash out. Thanks to him, I was spared from being reported to the police by the bystanders. Emily calmly tried to reason with me. She wanted to talk and explain everything. I was taken to a cafe by the man. Luckily, there were no other customers. A convenient setting for our awkward triangular discussion. In the tense atmosphere, Emily quietly began to speak. "The truth is, I only have a few months to live. I'm currently staying at a hospice run by this man, Brian." I was so shocked by this sudden revelation that I couldn't find the words. Her lifespan, hospice, Emily. It took about 10 seconds before I could fully grasp the situation, and all I could do was silently listen to Emily's story. Emily spoke calmly. Soon after we married, she received a notification for re-examination during a health checkup for cervical cancer. I was busy with work day after day, and Emily had no pain, so neither of us suspected it was cancer. That's why Emily didn't rush to get the re-examination. A few months later, when Emily finally visited the hospital, the cancer had metastasized beyond her uterus, and the doctors couldn't do anything. Emily was suddenly given a prognosis of her remaining life. After that, Emily struggled terribly with her thoughts. I was a young, promising professional in the prime of my career. We had just married, and sooner or later, we had to think about starting a family. Emily needed to be hospitalized for treatment, which would require a nursing attendant. If she told me about her illness, especially knowing she had a limited time left, I would probably abandon my work to stay with her. Emily, thinking about my life without her, wanted me to focus on my career. So, she decided not to tell me about her illness, not wanting to hinder me. Emily has decided to leave me for good. It seems she intends to play the villain, believing that by doing so, it'll spur me to move on and perhaps even make me feel better, as I'd want to prove her wrong. In fact, she thinks it might even help me cut ties with my lingering attachment to her, allowing me to remarry someone new. Emily's heart-wrenching act of deception. I was completely fooled by it. The man with her was the owner of the hospice where Emily was staying. Brian, the owner, had always opposed Emily's decision to continue lying and was angry that I was being deceived. He apologized repeatedly for yelling at me earlier. But there was one thing Emily hadn't anticipated. That was my continuing love for her. No matter what lies Emily told, I couldn't simply forget her. Hearing all of Emily's story, I didn't feel angry with her. Instead, I fell for her even more. Emily's lies weren't for her own sake. Rather, she was sincerely worried about my future after losing her, even sacrificing our life together. Knowing that Emily was thinking of me until the end, I couldn't stop crying. I loved Emily sincerely, but more than that, I was loved so much by her. Emily spoke while trembling slightly. The sudden terminal diagnosis, the divorce, and living alone in a hospice. How much she must have suffered. I instinctively wrapped Emily's hands in mine. And I told her clearly. "Do you remember my proposal? I said I'd always make you happy, remember that?" As I spoke with a smile, Emily nodded while shedding tears, then asked in a small voice, "My time left is very short. Is that okay with you?" I said, "Of course," and took Emily's hand. Pulling the chain of my necklace out from under my polo shirt, I revealed, "Oh, my wedding ring that I gave you when we separated," Emily exclaimed in surprise, and I couldn't help but smile. Yes, it was our matching wedding rings from when we were newlyweds. Even though we were divorced, I always wanted to be with Emily. So I connected the two wedding rings to a chain and wore them close to my skin. I thought wearing them as a necklace would go unnoticed, and while it might seem sentimental, it was my heartfelt expression of love for Emily. I carefully removed the wedding ring from the chain and proposed, "Let's put these rings on each other's fingers again, so we'll never be apart." After suggesting, I slipped the ring onto Emily's slender ring finger. Emily, while crying, did the same to mine. After a long detour, we finally reaffirmed our feelings for each other. Next to us, smiling, Brian, the hospice owner, was crying. Clapping his hands, he said, "I'm so glad, truly glad." Emily was against it, but I decided to take a leave of absence from work for a while. My boss, who had also lost his wife early, understood and agreed to take over my work responsibilities. I brought Emily, with her limited time left, back to our home instead of the hospice. We decided to spend our final moments together. Emily made bento boxes, and we went to various places. We visited a local flower field, a ranch, a zoo, an aquarium, and even the top of the rock. The most memorable visit was to the National Aquarium, a place Emily had longed to see. The last few months with Emily were incredibly peaceful, becoming unforgettable memories for a lifetime. Several months have passed since Emily's passing. It's not that I don't feel sad or lonely, but Emily will always be in my heart. I will continue to live my life to the fullest, cherishing our memories. That's the promise I made in the end.